What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be getting really honest about what I would actually do differently if I were starting my business from scratch right now. So this is not going to be the generic kind of pick me advice of like, I would have invested in mentorship sooner. But I'm going to be getting into like the real specific things that I either did wrong, did too late, or just flat out avoided for too long. So these are the 6 things that I would do differently to make millions faster. And some of them might surprise you. So let's get into it. I started building my business in 2019. So that was 7 years ago. A lot has changed since then, obviously, which is why I wanted to really reflect and think about if I were in the earlier stages of building a business or a personal brand, or even just like pivoting and kind of starting over or wanting to take a new direction in my business, what would I actually be focusing on? What would I actually be doing now in today's landscape? Because it's very different from all the changes that we've seen in social media, to the types of content that are working, to what types of offers people are buying. Like, so much has evolved and changed. So obviously a lot of the things that I'm going to share here are things that maybe weren't even like on my radar back in 2019, but also some of them are just like tried and true things that I fucked up and I should have just done better at. So I'm going to share this with you. This is a common thing that people often do of like, here's what I would do if I were starting over today. And I've never really done that kind of trend, whether it's in a social media post or a carousel or anything, but I really wanted to challenge myself and think about, no, like truly, Sam, because there are people that really want to either start over, pivot, start fresh, or they're just getting going right now. And these types of conversations and this type of advice can be really, really helpful for those people. So that's part of mentorship in and of itself, is like learning from people's mistakes, paying with money so that you don't have to pay with your own time, messing up and, doing things wrong. And so that's what I hope this episode is another version of. It's like free game, free mentorship. Like, hey, if I were doing things right now, I would be focused on this. I would not be focused on that. This is where I fucked up. Definitely don't do that. And so that's kind of like the vibe of this conversation. So if I were building from zero in 2026 or starting fresh, making a pivot, wanting to just have like a new reinvigorated approach to how I'm building my business, these are some things that I would do differently from what I did back in 2019, 2020, and the kind of really early days of my own brand. The first one is that I would be really focused on getting known for one thing and posting about it with aggressive repetition. And this is something that I, even to this day, still struggle with. And I teach this to my clients all the time, and I try to embody it as best as I can. But to be honest, the manifesting generator in me also sometimes just like hates saying the same thing over and over again. But I do think that this is a skill. This is a skill that you should really be thinking about. How do I optimize this? How do I master this? How do I get so fucking good at this? Because truly, this is the way to be remembered, to be sought after, to have people asking you to speak on their stages, inviting you into their masterminds. Like, you really do have to attach yourself and your name and your presence and your brand to a specific idea, topic, way of kind of being, an energy. If you look at any of the top creators that also have digital products or brands kind of attached to them where they're selling things, it's very obvious if you go through their content, like what they decided that they were going to become known for. And they just went in on that and they talked about it over and over and over and over and over again. And so when I think about like the way that I started my business, I kind of stumbled into building a personal brand and a business, and it wasn't super intentional. Obviously, if I were doing it now in 2026, I would have so much more knowledge and wisdom, and I would be way more intentional and laser focused. So when I started posting online, like I was all over the place. It was so many different themes and topics and personal stuff, and just like talking about anything to talk about anything, and commenting on all the things that are popular in the zeitgeist, and just it was everything everywhere all the time. And luckily that like worked out for me, but that is not what's working now. And so I do think it's really important for you to think about what your mastery markers are. This is something that I teach my clients on. And I like to think of mastery markers as kind of being like content pillars, hotter big sister. They're just a more evolved, more mature, cooler version of content pillars, okay? Because content pillars, you can still have those, and I think those can still be part of your approach to social media if that makes sense for you. Some people love them, some people hate them. I think it just doesn't really fucking matter. You definitely need to have mastery markers. You need to be clear on what you want to be known for. What are the key things that you want people to remember you for? What are the topics that you want people to invite you into their masterminds, into their programs, onto their stages to talk about? What do you want to get recruited to be on big podcasts to speak about? Like, oh, she's the XYZ girl. Oh, she's the blonde girl from Florida who always talks about ABC. Like, what is that? What do you actually want to attach yourself to? And can you force yourself to have an aggressive level of repetition in those topics on your social media, in your content, in new ways, in the same ways, repackaged in a new outfit over and over and over and over again? And I know a lot of us get bored with that. Like, I'm also guilty of that, but that truly is the thing that is really, really working right now. And I think this is a lot different than having to pick a niche or being super niche down, because I also think that that's so fucking dead and probably just bad advice if we're talking about like growing in 2026. I think that you are the niche, and it's really important, especially when you're building a personal brand, that you have a lot of these different like elements, and you have a lifestyle pillar, and people see these different sides of you and things that you love. And you also have like these brand pillars that you get attached to. And, you know, we could go so deep into that, but I think there's space for you to share about your lifestyle and your personality and be this like really well-rounded person on the internet who people know for more than just one specific niche area. But you also do need to have that repetition of your mastery markers. So it's like 1 to 2, maybe 3 key things that you're just going in on over and over again, because that is what you want to be known for. So that is the number one thing. It's working insanely well right now. If you look at any of like the top creators that have brands or products or things and you've seen them blow up, like they are doing this for fucking sure. Unless they're just like an influencer. Influencer is kind of like separate, because I think influencers blow up based on their personality or certain styles of content, like a specific format that they do over and over again. And that's another version of repetition that is also valuable and for sure can apply across the board to everybody. But when I speak about mastery markers, I'm specifically talking about like your thing that you're going all in on. Good example of this is like, think of like Shelby Sapp. Like, she grew from however many followers she had to like now millions in a couple of years, and has been on major podcasts, like featured on Purpose with Jay Shetty. And, you know, now she's having this conference and with really, really big speakers on her stage. And a lot of people know of her now in the high ticket sales space, and she really blew up. And if you look back at her content of what she was posting 3 times a day, every single day, with very specific formats, but she was going all in on her mastery markers, which were sales, specifically high ticket sales, how to get premium buyers, and how to roll objections. And really, she was just doing so many different videos of all the same type of stuff over and over again. And then the other kind of things that she attached herself to in terms of like brand and lifestyle is the kind of like luxury vibe, right? Like luxury vehicles, living in a high-rise apartment in Miami. Also attaching herself to things like Pilates, matcha. What else was kind of like big in terms of her personality? I think just like the Miami lifestyle and that sort of like, you know, always in activewear, but like making tons of money, being a boss bitch, but like having this lifestyle, that she really like blew that up and attached herself to those certain images and items and the lifestyle. But her mastery markers were clearly sales, rolling objections, and getting premium buyers to say yes and buy high ticket programs. Number 2. Now, to be fair to myself, this was not even a thing when I first started on Instagram, but if I were doing things now, I would do way more talking to camera original content. I wish that I would have started doing that even sooner, as soon as it became available, because that really did blow up so many people's brands. And it is still consistently one of the things that is working the best in today's market to really build a true community and a hot audience. You can get a lot of views by reposting viral type trends or using trending audio or doing a short 7-second B-roll with a really catchy hook on top. You can get a lot of views from that, but that is never going to be the strategy that gets you to have real ass people having real ass conversations in your DMs or in your comment section, or people knowing the inside jokes of your life and your brand, and people asking you questions and being interested, or having people on a wait list, or like hot, ready to buy people. You're only going to cultivate that if people really know you. And the best way for people online to get to know you is to talk to them face to face. And the best that we can do virtually, digitally to be face to face is talking head, talking to camera, yapping style videos. That is how you really show your audience your personality, the way that you think. It kind of allows them to get into your brain, to see the way that you process things, how you navigate stuff, your perspective on life, your values, how you think about your work, the way that you teach, how you are as an educator. All of that really comes through in the talking to camera videos that you just don't get with other styles of content. Now, I think other styles of content are so relevant. I think you can still do certain things as a way to have like top of funnel content that brings in a lot more views so that you get like more visibility. I think there's also conversion content like carousels or things that, you swipe through and they just convert so well when people are commenting the word. So it's not like all talking head content, but I would have done way more of that way sooner just because it works so well. And I think that all of us initially, when these features started coming out on social media, had a level of resistance to them because, rightfully so, it is intimidating to sit down and look at your phone and talk to your camera. And there's a lot of planning that is involved in that. If you're not a natural yapper where you can just like pull out your phone and talk for 5 minutes and then chop it down and cut it down to like a 60-second video, and you really need to plan and kind of curate and think about what you're going to talk about, like it's a level of planning that you probably didn't have to do with your post before when you were just putting a couple of photos together and then like writing a little bit in the caption. And so I think rightfully so, there was a certain level of resistance to that, but that is just, it's just the way. It's just the way of the world right now. So you really do have to master this skill of talking to the camera, of yapping style videos, like being casual, showing your personality. And I think the missing ingredient of all of this that not enough people are talking about, because everyone's teaching like how to yap to the camera type stuff, it's like the missing ingredient really is the personality, the spice. Because you could be like, oh yeah, I do this, I use this type of tech setup, here's how I set up my scripts or whatever. All that information is helpful and I think anyone could do that, but is it going to actually look good? Is it actually going to be engaging? No, not unless you have personality, charisma, you have spice, you're showing those like different sides of yourself. It's giving the viewer something interesting to kind of tune into. And so that's why the number 3 thing that I would do differently is I would have leaned into polarization way sooner. So yes, I think the talking to camera is key in terms of the format, but what matters most about this is the way that you do it and how your personality is translated across the screen, because we are all cooler in person, right? We all know that about ourselves. We're so much more interesting, funny, bold, sarcastic, weird, deep, philosophical, whatever. We're all so much more of everything in real life. The real challenge is not like, oh, do you know how to pull out your camera and make a talking head video and put your head in the right position and, learn how to make a script and do a hook and whatever. All of that is very technical and you can learn that. What is not so technical is the soft skill of actually being fucking interesting, right? And I think in order to do this, you have to be willing to say the stuff that other people are not. And that's the thing that most business owners and entrepreneurs actually have the most amount of challenge with, because you know that it's going to ruffle feathers. You know that if you actually owned your opinions and owned them loudly, you would get people being like, well, what about this? And what about if I'm me? And you would get some people that disagree with you, or you would get haters in the comments. And that is actually what is going to happen, right? I'm not here to sugarcoat it and be like, no, you're fine. None of that's ever going to happen. I mean, I think we overplay and we overhype how much that's actually going to happen. I think it happens here and there, but it's not going to be like everyone is at your throat. Again, if you don't have like millions of followers, you're probably not going to be thrown into some deep doo-doo, hot water, crazy, cancel campaign type situations. But you are going to get some uncomfortable comments where people disagree with you, but that's good. If everyone in the world agrees with you, then what the fuck are you doing? Do you even have anything valuable to say? Do you even have an opinion? Do you even have a personality? Can you stand on business for 0.2 seconds about literally fucking anything? Like, you should be hurting people's feelings, not just for the purpose of hurting people's feelings, but because you're being so authentically yourself that there's guaranteed to be people in the world that are like, what the fuck? I hate this girl. She's annoying, or this is so wrong, or I disagree, or I don't like her energy. Like, that should be happening. If that's not happening, we have a problem, because you're in zero polarization land. And as I've said for years and years and years, you guys are probably sick of me beating this like a dead horse, but it's one of my mastery markers. I'm doubling down on it. Polarize to magnetize. I have said this for so many years, but what this means, I think people like overlook it. What this really means is if you are not willing to repel some people, then you're never going to be truly magnetic, right? The magnet is only magnetic because it has those polar opposite ends. So you in yourself have to find, what are my hot takes? Where do I disagree with people in my industry? When everyone zigs, where do I zag? If everyone's like, oh, this is the best thing ever, or be doing this or talking about this, or everyone's doing a trend in XYZ way, like how can you zag and just do the opposite? Not just for the sake of it, but like genuinely thinking of, how do I differ? Like, where is my stance kind of unconventional or not the most common thing, or it's different to what everyone else is already saying? Having some level of polarization in your content is so vitally important in 2026 if you want to be memorable at fucking all. So this is like top of the list of things that I think anyone building, rebuilding, or scaling, expanding a business of any kind should be doubling down on is this. It's the polarization. It's reflecting to yourself, like, where am I still playing it safe publicly? And what are the parts and the sides of my personality and my opinions that people around me in private know, because it's very obvious when you're with me in person. And it's not because you're trying to necessarily hide anything in your online persona. It's just that most people, once a camera starts going, they feel like their personality evaporates. And you lose that sense of, I don't know, like cheekiness or banter or just the relaxed energy that is required in order for you to like let your bold opinions roll off the tongue. And so that's pretty normal, I would say, for people talking in front of the camera, but we all get to do this level of introspection for ourselves, right? Like where are these sides of my personality that are so obvious to the people close to me, maybe even to your clients behind closed doors, because when you're on client calls, you are naturally more this, that, or the other thing. Like what are those sides of your personality that in private are so obvious, but publicly when you look at your content, you're like, it's not translating. It's not coming through all the way. And how can I double down on that? How can I express more of that? How could I be more bold? Where am I still afraid? What am I actually afraid that people are going to say? What am I afraid that people are going to disagree with me on? What do I think the number one rebuttal to one of my opinions is going to be? How is this going to offend people? How am I imagining and anticipating ahead of time that this is going to offend people? And what do I think or know that they might say? And let's take myself to the worst case scenario of that consequence and think, okay, and what would I do in that scenario? You have to start like building safety around these things, because if you're not willing to aggressively repel people, then you're never going to be aggressively magnetic to the people that you actually want to be in your audience and ready to buy and love what you're doing and so obsessed with your content and binging everything that you post or your podcast or whatever. Like that only comes when you're willing to upset people. And that's something that we just have to come to terms with. So that's number 3. Number 4 is that I would have invested in ads sooner. And this one is a little bit of a hot take, okay? Because I love the fact that I was so highly organic for so long. I really do. Because hear me out, throwing money on ads when your content just sucks and isn't converting organically as is a really, really dumb idea. Don't do that. If the organic content is shit and it isn't getting good engagement and it's not converting to sales, then paying for ads on that type of content is literally lighting money on fire. Please don't do that. But I was 100% organic all the way up into and through $2 million in revenue. And so that showed me a lot about building my brand and what it took to have community and hot audience with no outside, input, with no ad money at all. And although I think that was really great and it helped me learn a lot and it also helped me help my clients a lot more with the organic game, I do think that I probably could have invested in ads a little bit sooner to help just speed up the lead flow and even just like the awareness of things, of like masterclasses that I was running, or when I was launching programs, just making sure that a larger percentage of my audience was seeing those things. Even something like retargeting ads and just making sure that the people that already follow me or already engaged with me or have already clicked on certain links, like they're seeing things more often so that you get that level of visibility, especially during launches and things like that. So I do think that I fumbled in that sense because ads were something that I didn't understand, and it was organic was working for me. So it was easier for me to just like stay organic. And I honestly think it was just like I don't want to say it was like a laziness thing, but it was like I already had so many things on my plate that I was managing and doing as the business owner that ads just kind of kept falling to the wayside of like, oh, well, I'm going to do it eventually. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. But also, again, to give myself a little bit of credit, there was like specific things that I wanted to have done before I started running ads, because as someone who, really had a lot of high ticket programs early out, because I was doing a lot of hands-on personalized mentorship where people were getting a lot of access to me, those programs are just naturally more higher ticket. And I was not doing sales calls for them anymore. I obviously did at the start, but eventually got to a place where I didn't even need to do sales calls for them anymore. And we were doing, 50K, 80K, 100K, 150K launches fully organic with no sales calls, meaning that people are just clicking to buy based on what they're seeing from my organic social media content with no ad spend at all. That's pretty fucking incredible. But there came a time where I wanted to be able to scale in a smarter way and really like diversify my offer suite and be intentional about what I was creating and having more touch points and places for people to enter my world. So instead of having to go right to a $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 plus program, I wanted to start building out offers that were $100, $200. And so that was something that I was working on building and taking my expertise when it comes to marketing, personal brand, all of that, and really chunking out these different offers that I think would solve very specific problems for my ideal clients in a bite-sized way that would get them really quick results, solve a specific problem, and give it to them for a super affordable, low price so that they had an easy way to say yes to jumping into my world, and then they could start learning from me in that way. And then we could upsell them to other offers, or they might naturally want to upgrade into masterminds or more closer proximity mentorship from there. And so once that was like on my radar and I was building all that out, I was like, well, okay, we're not going to throw ads on the high ticket programs because I'm not even doing sales calls for them. So typically if you're going to do ads for a high ticket program, it's going to be ads to something free that funnels them to the high ticket thing like a webinar or a masterclass, or it's going to be ads to essentially book a call to get on the phone with a closer or you yourself who's going to be taking the sales calls. And since neither of those things were happening, there was a time in my business where it just like didn't actually even make sense to be adding ads in. And so I wanted to start building out these lower ticket programs and other multiple offers and entry points essentially, so that we would have something that made a lot more sense to even run ad traffic to. So that was something that I was like waiting, quote unquote, waiting for, but I wasn't waiting. I was working. I was fucking building all of it. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, and now let's throw some gasoline on this and let's add ads into the mix. So that's kind of the breakdown of like why it took me so long to add ads. But back in the day when, I was doing sales calls or things like that, I still think it would have been cool to even just have, again, retargeting ads, making sure that my stuff was getting seen by more of even just like my own followers and having more traffic and more eyeballs on what I was doing at the time. And I think a lot of people can relate to this because ads can be super intimidating. And if you don't understand them, or you're worried about spending the money to invest in hiring an agency or someone to help you with them, and then you have to also have cash available for the monthly ad spend. So it's not something that you can just do right away. And it's also not something that I would recommend that you do right off the bat. But I do think that I could have invested in ads a little bit sooner just to get more of that visibility and more lead traffic. And I think that would have genuinely helped my growth and my speed. Now, number 5, to kind of piggyback off of what I was just saying, is I would have built a low ticket entry point offer earlier on. It took me so long to do this because, again, back in the day, like my whole strategy was organic content and high proximity offers that really allowed deep mentorship, personalization, lots of one-on-one feedback, a lot of my time. And that was a really smart move, to be honest, because one, it helped bring more money into the business earlier on because I wasn't wasting my time selling, $20 ebooks or random stuff. I was actually selling a high quality service. And it also helped build so much more of a reputation and social proof because I was able to really get in the nitty-gritty with my clients and help them create incredible transformations, which allowed us to have awesome testimonials and so many people that like changed their lives and their mindsets and started a business and started to grow a brand, and then we're making money and, you know, having all these incredible wins and going on to build podcasts and have millions of views or make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like being able to be in the weeds with my clients in those high ticket offers was the thing that was able to build me like a reputation and social proof of what I can help my clients do. So it was smart to do that. But I think that it would have been interesting for me to have built a low ticket entry point offer just a little bit earlier. Even if it was just like a year or two earlier, I think that would have been really, really cool as it relates to kind of like the branding, business, messaging side of things. Like I think there was an opportunity for me to jump on that much earlier than I did. Again, I think the reason why I delayed that or stalled it so much was just because like when you're one person, and yes, of course, I have team members and people helping me, but it's like we all know the overwhelm of being a business owner, and there's always a million things that you could be doing. You could be starting a YouTube channel. You could be like, there's always 1,000 things on your plate where like, yeah, I want to do that, and I want to do that, I want to do that, I want to do that. And so it was always like on my radar and was always a goal of mine, but I think it just kept getting pushed with how busy I was with other things. I was running retreats, I was building masterminds, I was, you know, doing a lot more in-person things. At one point, you know, for 2 years, I think I had 3 retreats a year for 2 years. And for me, that's a lot. That's a lot of like planning and organizing and just like events. And it was a lot. And so I give myself a lot of grace with that. But if I were like pivoting, refreshing, wanting to like grow in a new direction or starting out in 2026, I'd be like, let's make a baller ass low ticket entry point offer just to get more people into my world, to get more visibility of what I'm like as a teacher, a coach, practitioner, whatever you consider yourself. I just want more people to actually have that bite-sized taste of what it's like to work with me, because then from there, it would be so much easier to be like, okay, now let's work together further in a deeper capacity and then transition people into higher ticket offers. And so if I were you and I didn't have this yet, I would definitely be thinking about this. Now, when I say low ticket, this is a big range. And I think low ticket is subjective depending on what your other offers in your offer suite are priced. For some people, low ticket is $27. For some people, it's $97. For some people, it's $297. But I think it is a really, really good idea to always have a solid low ticket entry point offer where you can just get more people coming into your world, having that bite-sized taste of what it's like to work with you. Now, there is some strategy around what these offers should look like and how to build them out, because I don't think they can just be about anything. And I also don't think that they can be done in a lazy way where it's like, oh, let me just take this video or this masterclass or this thing that I already did over here and let me just like repackage it and kind of sell it. Like, sure, you can do that on the side, but that should not be your like main strategy for how you're operating with these low ticket offers. These need to be really, really well done. They need to be really well thought out. They need to be worth so much more than what you're actually charging for them. They need to have a lot of value inside of them, and they need to be very specific. They need to solve a super specific, narrow problem for someone and need to get them a relatively quick result. So there needs to be things inside of it that they can just start implementing right away and go, wow, this is working. And they're going to come out the other side and be like, that was way more valuable than what I paid for it. It actually helped me. I learned a lot and I got these results already. Oh my goodness, what else could be available for me if I were to take more courses or dive into a deeper program or do mentorship with this person or get closer to them or, join their highest level mastermind or whatever it is. That's kind of the idea. And so if you think about like everyone's talking about the viral YAP challenge within kind of the coaching industry right now, if you think about like why that offer works so well, it's because it meets all of the requirements that I just shared about building a low ticket entry point offer in your brand. And if you look at Jessie in general as a case study of how she did that, a lot of the things that we've talked about on this list so far of things that I would do differently fall in line with exactly how she did what she did and how she pulled off a $1.2 million launch in a matter of less than 2 weeks, because there was a really long build up to it. It's been months and months and months of her going deep on one skill set, right? She was aggressively repetitive with the one thing that she really wanted to be known for. She had like 2 to 3 mastery markers, I would say, but when she started to see the traction of the kind of like video content and yapping style stuff, she really went in on that. And that became a true mastery marker for her because of the aggressive repetition obsession that she had with it in her content, day after day after day after day, in new ways, the same thing over again, new outfit, different scenery, same concept, different way of saying it, just like over and over and over again. And obviously the more talking to head content, original content, that was a huge piece of her strategy. I don't know if she ran any ads or if she was 100% organic. I want to say she was 100% organic so far, but definitely there's like levels of polarization there and personality. And she has her own vocabulary and calling her followers homies and a specific way of talking and kind of for this like casual like cadence that she has. So all of the things that I've mentioned, I think really fit into a beautiful way to like look at Jessie Jean as a case study and understand why that Yap challenge worked so well. And then finally, it's like once she had built up all of this demand in her audience from doing all of those other things, she delivered a highly specific, narrow, low ticket entry point offer that was like $200 something. I want to say it was like $297 maybe. And it goes all in on one skill set, solves a very specific problem for her audience that she built up a ton of demand for around the mastery marker that she was cultivating. And it gets people a clear result because it's like, here's what to do, go do it. And so that's why it worked. That's why it popped off and blew up. And because the scale at which it did has a lot to do with how long she spent building that demand without ever having an ask. Right? When you think about like Gary Vee's concept of like jab, 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 right hook, Jessie's a really good example of someone who really went all in on their content for months and months and months and months and months and months and months without asking people for a lot in return. She wasn't really selling. She wasn't really hard pitching. She wasn't asking people for stuff. She was just giving, value, 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 value. And she was giving away all of her best stuff for free. Guarantee you a lot of what's in her free content is inside of the course that she ended up selling. But it's because of that she built so much demand, and because she was going so viral and generated hundreds of thousands of followers over those several months, she had a very, very big audience to be able to present that low ticket, easy, yes, entry level offer to, where people could just say, hell yeah, like I've been trying to learn this shit from you through your free content for the past 6 months. Like I want to get in the room and like really see what it's all about. So it's just, I actually wasn't even planning on talking about that, but I feel like that's just like a really good example that kind of like brings home everything that I've mentioned in this episode already. So our last and final thing that I would do differently, number 6, is I would fire people faster. And damn, I think this is something that I struggle with personally because I love building long-term relationships with people. Like there's so many people in my business that I've worked with for years and years and years and years. Like when I bring someone on, even if they're just a contractor, it is very rare that I switch up and try somebody else, or I'm like dabbling with all these different people or trying to find the best person. And that could be potentially a strategy as well. But I really try to look for high quality humans who do work that I really, really love. And then I'm just like a ride or die. Like I think that's just like my personality. Like I'm just a ride or die bitch. And so like I really struggle to be like, no, let's switch up. We'll find somebody else. Like I'm just not like that. I don't view humans in general as like being so easy to replace or like disposable. And I also think it overwhelms me. The idea of like, oh, well, let's just, get rid of them and we'll bring somebody else in, or there'll be someone better for the job. Like the idea of that level of like change in the behind the scenes of the business can overwhelm me, and it can kind of make me like glitch out where I'm like, it's like a record scratching where I'm like, this is probably something that needs to happen, but I don't really want it to be needing to happen. So in the past, I've been guilty of avoiding it. So when contractors that I had hired on for certain projects or things, even though they would do consistent work for me, because I don't have any like full-time employees where like they are salaried or I pay for their health insurance or whatever, like the people that work in and on my business with me are independent contractors. So they're freelancers, they own their own businesses, they have multiple clients, I'm just one of them. And so it's that kind of relationship where it's not like I'm their boss and like they're an employee and they only work for me and I need to fire them. I think that would be even more of like a thing, because if I let someone go as a contractor, like I know that they work for multiple other people already as well. And so it's not like I'm, ruining their life by letting them go by any means. But still, I think I just like, it's like an inconvenience to me. And also it makes me feel bad for them. So I need to like get over that, because when there's contractors that I've hired and it's like quality of the work starts to go down after a while, or they get so used to you being like a regular client that they stop prioritizing you a little bit, or they will start like outsourcing the work that they're doing for you to their own kind of like behind the scenes assistants. And then sometimes over time you can just tell like, oh, it's not them who's actually doing this because they feel like the quality is different. Or maybe like this has happened before with other people that I've hired in the past, where like at the start they're really good at communicating and they're super transparent about like where things are at, what they need. They're also really proactive with like coming up with ideas and being like, hey, I think we should do this. What if we try that? And then over time that just kind of starts to like wane, and you're like, oh, they're like harder to get in contact with, or they're less responsive, or they're taking longer, or they're not as communicative, or whatever it is. And you're just like, okay. But there's part of you that just like doesn't want to deal with like having to change so much. So you delay. And so I think in the past, like there were definitely very specific examples I can think of where I should have fired people a lot faster, and it took way longer than I would like to admit to be able to say like, this is not like the quality or what's going on here is no longer a fit for our organization, so I'm gonna need to let you go. And I think that is a skill, especially as women, as female CEOs and business owners, that we have to work on. And it's been hard for me. I'll admit that. And so that's something, if I were starting fresh now in 2026, I'd be like, okay, bitch, listen. We need to hire slowly and we need to fire quickly. Like when someone shows you who they are, or, you know, it's very clear what's happening behind the scenes, the quality of work is not there. Like you need to be ruthless with people, and you need to really set the standard of what you expect. And if it's not being met, then you need to have hard conversations. Like, yes, always give people a chance and talk to people before you just go, hey, you're done, which obviously we know I wouldn't even be capable of anyway. But I do think that needs to happen a little bit more quickly, because we can just like hang on, because it's easier than having to go through the change and the upheaval of like removing a significant role from your business or finding someone else, onboarding, all that shit. It's like, of course it's a pain in the ass, but you got to hold the standard for the brand and what you expect. And also transparently what you're probably spending thousands of dollars a month on. Like it needs to be quality, or do it yourself, right? Especially if you're in earlier stages. Like if it's not quality and if it's not helping make your life easier, then DIY it, okay? Because as a DIY solo entrepreneur girly who literally did everything her fucking self in the early days of business, like sometimes you got to go back to the basics of doing shit yourself if it's better than paying someone to do a bad job, 100%. So these are the 6 things that I would do differently if I were starting fresh in 2026, wanting to build or expand my brand and wanting to get to the place of making millions a lot faster. And sometimes I forget to say this, because it feels obvious to me, but like business strategy and personal brand marketing is what I help my clients with all day long. So if you genuinely want support in any of these areas, you can find it inside of some of my low ticket programs like Become Uncopyable and 7 Days of Sales Secrets. We go through and dissect everything from offer flow to your Yap style videos to upselling people from one offer to the next, being more polarizing online, how to structure your low ticket entry point offer like we talked about. So you can purchase those courses individually on their own, of course, or you could also join the room where you get all of it, along with all of my other programs and trainings that I've ever created, plus live business mentorship with me every single month so that I can answer your questions and support you directly with whatever it is that you're building in your business, what you're working on. You also get live content workshops to make sure that your content is getting better month over month and having that really direct personalized feedback on what's happening with your content. We also do live hypno breathwork for the kind of deeper somatic identity work that makes all of these strategy stuff actually stick in your business. And I also do these bonus messaging audits where I get to put my eyes directly on your sales copy to give you personalized feedback to make sure that it's really positioned to convert. So the room is where it's at, y'all. It's where you get literally everything and it's all in one place. So yes, you can buy the mini courses a la carte here and there, but if you want everything plus mentorship and all of the live support and personalized feedback, the room is the place to be. You can apply now at the link below. I'll leave it in the show notes for you guys, or you can also find the link in my bio on Instagram. If you have any questions, you can always send them to me on Instagram at _Samantha Daily. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for tuning into the pod. If you love this episode or if you learned anything from it, let me know. Drop a comment down below wherever you're listening. I love all of the feedback, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.